3 minutes and 32 seconds is how long it took a 38-year-old woman standing 5 feet tall to walk her opponent down, put her on the mat with one hand, and keep hitting her until the referee had to pull her off. This is the story of Rin Nakai, the fighter who went 16 fights without a loss, drew a former world champion in her UFC debut, lost twice, got released, and returned to Japan, where a decade later she was still ending fights inside a single round. Anyone who knows Rin Nakai only from photographs has the wrong idea about her, and everything that follows explains why. Begin with the measurement that shouldn't work at all. Nakai stands roughly 155 centimeters, which comes out to 5 feet flat, and she has spent the bulk of her career competing at 135 pounds in the bantamweight division. Almost every opponent she has ever faced looked down at her. She surrenders height, reach, and frame every time she accepts a fight, and she keeps accepting them anyway. Here's the contradiction that turned her into a household name in Japan. Nakai is the smallest person in the cage and visibly the strongest looking because she carries a bodybuilder's physique that has nothing to do with being merely athletic or in shape. Nothing else in women's mixed martial arts looked anything like her at the time. Japanese media understood exactly what they had on their hands. Photo books, DVDs, and variety show appearances followed, and the packaging turned her into a kind of muscle idol, with idol-style marketing wrapped around a body that belonged in a strength competition. For years, that stayed the only version of Rin Nakai casual fans ever encountered. The novelty act, the clip you pull up on your phone to show a friend. What most of them never bothered to check was whether the novelty could actually fight. 16 wins, no losses, and a single draw is the record she carried into the UFC. Pancrase, one of the oldest and most respected promotions in Japan, hosted most of that run, and she captured the women's title there and became Queen of Pancrase. Sit with the streak for a second, because it represents years of work without a single defeat inside a real promotion, while giving up size on most nights. The pitch wrote itself when the UFC signed her in 2014. An undefeated Japanese champion at 16-0 who looked like nobody else on the roster. Reality showed up on the 23rd of August, 2014 at the Cotai Arena in Macau on a card billed as UFC Fight Night 48. Nobody eased her into anything. Waiting for her was Miesha Tate, a former Strikeforce champion and future UFC champion, one of the most experienced and battle-tested women in the entire sport at that moment. Handing a debutante that assignment is not a soft landing. It's a title contender dropped on someone taking her first walk in the organization. Tate won by unanimous decision, and the fine print there deserves attention. Nakai never got blown out and never got finished because she went the full distance with Miesha Tate in Tate's prime in her own promotional debut, while giving up real size. Tate controlled the fight and earned the result. Nakai was still standing when the final bell rang. The second loss arrived on the 27th of September, 2015, and this one landed harder because it happened at home inside the Saitama Super Arena, one of the most storied buildings in the history of Japanese combat sports. Leslie Smith drew the assignment across from her that night. Another unanimous decision went against Nakai, which meant the distance again, no finish again, and another mark in the loss column. 2 fights, 2 defeats, and a release back to the Japanese circuit. Now for the honest argument, because 2 completely legitimate readings of that UFC run exist, and you need both of them. The critical version runs like this. The 16-0 came together primarily on the domestic Japanese scene. And during the middle of the 2010s, the Japanese scene and the UFC roster functioned as 2 largely separate worlds. Under that reading, thin opposition inflated the streak, she stepped up in class, and the truth surfaced immediately. The competing version holds up just as well. Nakai stands 5 feet tall. Her promotional debut came against a former world champion, and her second fight put her across from another established American, Nobody at that level, against that size disadvantage, could put her away. Losing and getting broken are two different outcomes, and only one of them happened to her. There's one more thing that trails her everywhere, and precision serves better here than pretending. Speculation about her physique has circulated online for as long as people have been looking at photographs of her, so let me be exact about what the record shows. No failed test, no sanction, and no adverse finding from any commission exists against Rin Nakai that I'm aware of, and she competed inside the UFC under commission testing without one. Speculation and a finding are not the same thing, and I'm not going to blur the line between them. 10 years passed after Macau, 9 after Saitama, and most people who thought about Rin Nakai at all had filed her away as the Japanese fighter with the physique who went 0-2. Everyone assumed the story had already ended. Nakai never stopped fighting. The 23rd of November, 2024 brought Deep Jewels 47, the women's arm of the Japanese promotion Deep, and Nakai walked in at 38 years old, still 5 feet tall, across the cage from Haruka boss Suzuki. The whole thing lasted 3 minutes and 32 seconds. How it ended is the entire reason this video exists, and the sequence went in 6 steps. Pressure, close the distance, land the heavy hand, drop her, ground strikes, and a TKO. Run that back slowly, because those 6 steps explain her entire career. She stands 5 feet tall with no reach to speak of, which means no version of that fight ever existed where she stayed outside and picked somebody apart from range. That option has never been available to her, so everything she does gets built on top of the limitation, and reaching the range where she becomes dangerous requires walking straight into the fire. Walking in is exactly what she did. Once the distance collapsed to the spot she wanted, a heavy left hand landed and Suzuki went down, and the knockdown is not the frightening part of this. The frightening part is what came next. Suzuki hit the mat and Nakai was already on top of her, with no step back, no standing over her, and no time spent admiring the damage. Following straight in, she took top position and started hammering down without giving her opponent a second of recovery or a breath of space, and the referee eventually had to climb in and physically drag her off a body. The official result read round 1, 3 minutes and 32 seconds, TKO. That version of Rin Nakai never appeared in a single photo book. The monster question deserves the accurate answer rather than the exciting one. Nakai is not a pure knockout artist, and her career doesn't claim otherwise. Grappler with a wrecking ball attached describes her more truthfully, built on clinch work, takedowns, top control, ground and pound, and submissions, because the finish functions as her destination rather than her identity. That reality is precisely why Deep Jewels 47 hits the way it does. What she produced in Japan that night was no wrestler stumbling into a lucky punch. It was a complete kill sequence, running from the first step of pressure through to a referee peeling her off her opponent, finished in under 4 minutes by a 38-year-old woman who stands 5 feet tall. 10 years before that, the same fighter carried 16 straight wins into Macau and walked out with the first defeat of her professional life, handed to her by a world champion. Saitama took the second one. The UFC released her, and by every normal script in this sport, that's where the credits roll. She kept fighting instead, and a decade later, she was still finishing opponents in the first round. Whatever that is, it was never a gimmick.